Greetings Internet, I'm Rob Bernacki, this is Stefan Kesting. Today we're going to be going over the 6 layers of half guard, progressing from the farthest distance from your partner's hip into the closest distance and underneath the hip. Okay, our first layer, and this is our longest range half guard, is the half guard shell. The key components of this are my shin being laced over top and creating a strong hook on the back leg to prevent my partner from being able to kick out, and creating a lever access where I can externally rotate my partner's hip. Attempting to keep my knee as a frame here. If your legs are too short, it's okay because we'll have supplementary frames, but this certainly helps a lot. And then I've got my next frame, which is my knee high up at my partner's shoulder. My left hand, in this case I'm playing off my right hip, my left hand is cupping the shoulder, so I'm creating a frame underneath my partner's windpipe and connecting my elbow to my knee. So I've got really good structure here. I've got frames reinforced by frames, and then I'm crunching in so that I can access this arm, again blocking the crossface, and potentially creating attacks on this arm. So this is our half guard shell. This is the farthest distance half guard. The next distance is the more so like the low knee shield, Z guard, hip clamp. There are different names for it. Although with the hip clamp, generally your bottom knee is in very deep and you're extending away like this. This is popularized by Coyote in particular. He's excellent at this. That's where I learned it from. And then more of just like the Z guard, you know, Craig Jones style, where you're not quite as turned in.
So you're crossing your ankles.
So you're crossing your ankles to amplify the strength of this frame. And generally speaking, you're trying to take an overhook with this style of guard, whereas most of the half guards, you're trying to work into an underhook. So
why do you want the overhook?
We're going to be separating our partner's structure by pressing with our shin against their hip. And generally speaking, if we can gain control here, we can attack triangles and things like that.
Okay, perfect.
So that's the next range. Then we move into our half butterfly guard, where we're a little bit closer. We're still going to be using this style of framing often, and our main goal with this is to gain control of this hand so we can elevate somebody and start going into leg entanglements. So this is a style of half guard. If you know, it is a half guard, but it's a style of half guard that's favored by Eddie Cummings, and prominent leg lockers are going to really favor this just because of the direct insertion to Ashi, standard Ashi from this, and the potential for elevating someone and going into the 411 on the near leg. So you're able to simultaneously threaten elevations and entanglements on both legs.
So it's a half guard with a bottom leg and a butterfly with the top.
Exactly, and then whatever frames and kind of control schemes you want here. So that gets our hips fairly close. And then as we start to move even closer, the next one would be the lockdown, which you see favored by the 10th Planet Association. If we can just turn a little bit more, here we go. So the lockdown involves my top leg being over top, my bottom leg being underneath, and stretching my partner out while we engage in a battle for underhooks, attempt to whip the person up, get onto their side, get an underhook, and then there are various attacks where you go under this leg, the electric chair being the primary one where you've got double lever access, so that's kind of a closer range. As my hips start to get closer to you, we start to have more and more let's say potential problems with being underhooked and smashed. So I think you'll find that the closer your half guard is, the uglier you are after several years of playing it, just because you're gonna have your face mashed up a lot of the time. So if you want to stay pretty, stay out here, and if you don't care and you've just got lots of charisma, then go ahead and get flat on your back like this. Work the lockdown, or now even closer is the more like Gordo style half guard, where I'm triangling my legs, creating some kind of clamp and working on an underhook and trying to get up into base to threaten, again, various sweeps, which you'll see progressions of this in the 10th Planet curriculum as well. Popping up to attack the back, all kinds of double threats that are created from being deep on the underhook around the waist or the hip.
So now we're back to hooking my leg that's between your legs with your
So in the
inside leg.
Exactly. So in the case of the Gordo style half guard, we are clamping my right leg to your right leg, and usually making a triangle, although there are different variations of this. Lucas Ledge with the knee torque, where he's more going like this. So again, like we can kind of go on ad infinitum about variations on what different grapplers play, but basically I'm clamping with my inside leg rather than my top leg, and my hip is deeper, which is the main distinction.
That was the 5th one.
That's the 5th one, and then the final one involves me getting all the way underneath into the deep half guard. So I'm using a direct lever to the hip mechanic here, oftentimes with hooks to either sweep or access the back. Again, most of the half guards, as you get closer and closer to the hip, center around creating that double threat of, I might threaten to sweep you in this direction and then pop you out and start to take your back. Or I might be able to come back and sweep you in that direction, come up on a double unders or over unders pass.
So attack left, go right, attack right,
Go left, exactly.
So you mentioned preserving your looks is one reason for preferring certain ranges. Any other hints, any other body types that work better for some of these?
Yeah, I mean, the
shorter your legs are.
The shorter your legs are, yeah, exactly. The more
tighter in you want to be.
Yeah, and I mean, in particular, if you have short and very flexible legs, the half butterfly guard, because it is a bit of an ask sometimes to get this half butterfly hook in against somebody who's giving you heavy pressure. So body type wise, definitely. Although, I mean, I've played all ranges of this. Certain things, you know, it's pretty ironclad that if you're 5'2" and 250 pounds, you're not going to be a triangle specialist. But like the half guard, I think because there's so many variations on the half guard, you're going to find one that where, you know, Bernardo Feria is quite tall and still plays a very close range half guard, whereas, you know, you get smaller guys who favor the half guard as well. So yeah, I don't think it's as body type limiting just because of the different variations. I think the thing to be most aware of in selecting the half guard you want to play is recognizing the technical and tactical advantages and disadvantages of the position. I certainly don't believe that deep half guard should be your primary guard, both from a developmental perspective and from a tactical perspective, because I think it's the farthest range. You've given up so many layers of your guard that you know, if something fails in the deep half guard, your opponent is instantly smashed you, past you, is on your back. There are all kinds of things that are going wrong. If something goes wrong in the half guard shell, you got 5 layers left. It's not that big of a deal. So depending on how you know, risk averse and tactical you want to be, I would definitely recommend starting with the half guard shell and developing your ability to keep someone at range and then work your way through them. So
I know you've done some half guard stuff on your website now.
Yeah.
That you've
bjjconcepts.net.
All right.
Shameless plug.
I pretty much invited it, Rob.
Yes.
So there you actually go into the techniques from those different positions.
We've started for that reason with the half guard shell, and we'll be progressing through the closer ranges as people learn the techniques. And you know, techniques is actually not the right way to do it, because everything we do on our site is based on the idea of modules. So I'm not just going to throw a bunch of random, I mean, if you're familiar with my work, you know I'm not going to throw random techniques at you, but everything is designed with a progression in mind, where it's a module that's teaching you the initial control scheme, what are the frames and levers that you need to identify, what are the recovery points, so when someone starts to break through some of your frames, when somebody starts to gain an underhook, all that kind of stuff. And then once you know how to maintain the guard, what is your kazushi? So for those of you who don't know, kazushi is a Japanese term from judo, which denotes off balancing. So we believe that the guard should be used as a primarily range management tool, and then for distance, and then once we can manage the range and control the distance, we can off balance our opponent to create sweep or submission threats. So we teach you the kazushis first, then we go through the different attacks from them. So yeah, I think we've got about 30 or 40 videos on just the half guard shell.